Hi, it's Mark Bossert, producer, Pawlik Automotive podcaster here with Bernie Pawlik, Pawlik Automotive, and we're talking cars. How are you doing this morning, Bernie?
Doing very well.
So this week's victim is a 2003 Toyota Matrix that had an EVAP system problem. What's an EVAP system and what was going on with this vehicle?
All right. Well, first of all, the vehicle came in with a check engine light, and it had been at our shop previously several months ago with the same check engine light and the same trouble code. So I'll talk about that in a minute. But the EVAP system basically it stands for evaporative fuel system, and what it does is it prevents gasoline vapors from escaping to the atmosphere. Gasoline, if you've ever filled your gas tank up on a hot day, you'll see all that vapor kind of floating away. Unless you're in the U.S. with one of those gas pumps that sucks, keeps the vapor contained. But basically what happens is gasoline is very volatile and it evaporates very easily. So, and that evaporated fuel, it's all hydrocarbons. It creates smog and a lot of pollution. It's a huge issue. You think, oh, it's just drifting away, but it actually creates a lot of issues. So not to mention, it's actually your money that's actually floating away into the atmosphere. So it's a good idea to keep the gas contained. And that's what the EVAP system does. It's rather complicated. I mean, it involves a gas tank, a sealed fuel filler, and then a number of pipes and valves and sometimes motors to keep the system contained. But it allows the air to be, as the gas is being sucked out of the tank, of course, it allows air to be displaced, but it doesn't allow air to go, excuse me, back. It doesn't allow the fumes to escape back to the environment. So that's basically what the EVAP system does. So it's pretty complex, but it does its job.
So again, what was going on with this Toyota Matrix?
So no performance issue, and that's pretty common with EVAP system codes. The performance of the vehicle is often not affected. Only under certain circumstances it will be, but most of the time it doesn't really affect the performance. It's just that the system has picked up a fault that could cause gases to evaporate out into the air. So I'll get into some pictures right away here. We've got, what do we have here? We'll start, there's our 2003 Toyota Matrix, a little old, but still in really good shape. And look at the trouble code. So here's a scan on one of our scan tools that shows the trouble code. So P0440, there's a malfunction in the system, and then a P0446. The evaporative emission control system vent control malfunction. So this is a little more specific of a code. And you can see there's a current and history. This is the way trouble codes are often stored. They'll depending on the scan tool, it'll show what's actually there at the moment and what's history. So sometimes you'll only have a history code and not a current code. Anyways, that's a question for another time. But what we found with this vehicle, because we'd actually done a previous diagnosis, and actually, I guess I know we had another question of how difficult are EVAP systems to diagnose, and I'll just jump right into that. These can be really complicated and fiddly to diagnose. And what some of the reasons why is that there are certain valves. There's a purge valve, a vent valve, and they'll often malfunction intermittently. So we can run through all the tests and we can test it all, and it all works fine. Clear the code, send it away, and then a week later the check engine light's back on because the system malfunctioned. So sometimes, what we often rely on are databases of what are common faults in these vehicles. So, I mean, one of the common issues that we ran into. So last time we did the diagnosis, we did the full system test. We tested for leaks. We found none. We tested all the valves and controls. Everything was working fine. The gas cap was very old, and a bad gas cap will cause some of these codes. We replaced the gas cap and release the vehicle with the codes cleared, and a few months later the light comes back on again. So without spending a lot of extra money of the clients to test everything that we have already tested, we figured the best thing to do is just go to the next most common fault, and that's the vacuum, the VSV valve on the canister purge tank. That's extremely common fault in this vehicle, and it had never been changed. It was original. The vehicle's 180,000 kilometers, 15 years old, so it made sense to change it at this point in time.
So you have a picture of that?
Yeah, I do. Yeah, so that is the VSV. You can see that's the mounting bracket, extremely rusty. And where this unit mounts, right up here, this is the charcoal canister. So this is a big component of the EVAP system. They've used charcoal canisters actually for a long time before they went to all this electronic sort of monitoring of the EVAP system. This has been around since the late 60s, just to trap gasoline vapors, but it wasn't quite as sophisticated as is now. But there's a location. That's the new valve installed. There are various, as you can see, there are a number of hoses that run to a number of different locations and different parts of the vehicle. Hoses that run to the engine, hoses that run from the gas tank, hoses that go to the fuel filler neck. They're all over the place, and any one of these hoses can leak. So when we do testing on the system, we all test, to find out whether there's leaks anywhere in any of these components. And that ends our picture show.
So what happened next?
What happened next? We replaced the valve, cleared the codes, and so far it's working fine. Now, again, as I mentioned, this was one of these repairs where we'd already done all our testing and we couldn't find a problem. So we've replaced a couple of components. We'll see how things go. It's not the way we normally like to do things in our shop. We really like to test and find things that are wrong. But often, as I said, with these valves, like that VSV valve, they can malfunction intermittently. They'll be, you test it, and you can power it up manually, and works fine. And then, an hour later, something will happen and it won't work. So a lot of times, if it's a known common fault on a vehicle, it's a good idea to replace that, just to put it aside. Leaks are a good thing. Leaks are a pretty solid thing to test. We can see them. We can verify that pressure's dropping, and in this case, it wasn't. So an electric valve, electronic valve like that is a good call.
So for troubleshooting, it's really important that you gather as much information as possible before you jump to the what might seem like the obvious conclusion, but often isn't. Is that fair?
Exactly. Yeah, exactly.
And how are these Toyota Matrix for reliability?
They're good. Yeah, I mean, they're awesome car. I mean, very, very little goes wrong. Even these EVAP systems are very reliable. If you're living by the way, EVAP system faults happen a lot more if you live in a climate with a lot of salty roads, because it tends to corrode things and wear things out a lot faster. But yeah, really reliable vehicle.
So there you go. If you want experts in diagnosis and troubleshooting to look after your vehicle, the guys to call are Pawlik Automotive. You can reach them at 604-327-7112 if you're in the Vancouver area. You have to call ahead to book because they're busy. Check out their website, pawlikautomotive.com, YouTube channel, Pawlik Auto Repair, or thank you very much for listening on iTunes. We appreciate it. Thanks, Bernie.
Yeah, thanks for watching, and thank you, Mark.